Thank you guys for watching the pod. If you want to come out and party with me every single week, I'm at Polecats Wednesday night for the best industry night in Chicago. Friday happy hour 4 to 7 at Joy District on the rooftop over the summertime. And the late show at Liquor Box 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. every Friday night. Let's go, champ. I appreciate you. Let's get back to the pod.
Well, all right. Battle raps cause I've shaken grown men to the point that they can't even face their own friends. That's why they rhyme about jewels, not life, cause the ice on which they skate.
Welcome back to the Party with Strategy podcast. Very special episode. I'm super excited. Chicago legend in the building. Michigan native, Chicago resident. The Chicago service industry savant. The underground king. The best of Celeste, Artie the White Wolf.
Man, thanks for having me.
Yeah, Arturo Gomez in the building. Let's go, champ.
What an intro.
You like that?
Yeah. I don't think it gets much better than that.
Yeah.
My God.
I try and do a nice little intro, get you pumped up.
So what are we jamming on today?
I feel like we got to get a little bit of your history for anyone that doesn't know. I did a lot of research last night, so I know. I'll fact check you.
Yeah. Wow, where do I start like from the very beginning?
Yeah, I mean
embryo stage.
Do you remember being in the womb? I mean, I watched the Terrence Howard episode of Joe Rogan. He was talking about his memory of being in the womb.
Didn't want to come out. Man, so I moved to Chicago in 1997. I moved to Chicago from University of Michigan. I was just graduating, and I was supposed to go to dental school. And I deferred for a year because in the 11th hour senior year, I was like, man, I'm actually kind of a social dude. And like, I like to throw parties. And I had a very different idea of what I should be doing. Mm-hmm. Really passionate about science and math. And so that's kind of what led me down the path for dentistry. And I also had a dentist and an orthodontist when I was growing up that were like in my ear nonstop. Like, this is what you should be doing. This is what you should be doing. And so anyways, not really knowing what I should be doing when I went into college, that's what I jumped into. Moved to Chicago because my sister was here. Thought that I was going to be able to find a job in finance. I wanted to try my foot in finance for a minute, and was really looking for an opportunity to be like a liaison between one of the bigger banks, like a Goldman Sachs, in like their Latin American office. Because I'm bilingual, so I was like, I'll go work in Mexico City, and didn't really have any fucking clue like how any of this stuff worked. I was just like, all right, let me see if I can get these interviews. I managed to get the interviews because of the Michigan degree. Mm-hmm. My entire background in school though was biology, so I had zero finance. I took an accounting class, but so that none of that panned out. I needed to find a job, and I needed to find a job quickly because my parents were like, yo, you're cut the fuck off. Like, you're done. And so I started working at a bar on Clark Street called Frank's.
Clark and what?
Clark and Deming.
Okay.
So right in the middle of Lincoln Park. It's like, that's where every random kid right out of college moves, like literally that block. I ended up leaving Lincoln Park after a year because it was just, it was like as white as could possibly be. I was like, I need a little flavor.
It's too white for you, huh?
It was too white for me. So I worked at this bar, Frank's, and I was their opening bartender, and they'd open up at 11 o'clock. And it was one of the most like humbling / miserable experiences, even though I was able to pay, I was paying the bills barely. I was making about $60 a day. That was all in like tips and like hourly or whatever. And the customers that were coming there were probably 60 years old, like average dudes that were just putting back around 10 or 15 drinks, like by 1 p.m.
Yeah.
And
retired.
Retired, but still very active alcoholics.
Yeah.
And so I was doing that for about 6 months. That was my introduction to the hospitality industry. At that time, most people probably won't remember this, but at that time, there was a marketing company called KBA They were heavily involved in the marketing of Camel cigarettes throughout the venues of the industry or whatever. Also at that time, Chicago was an insanely much smaller industry community. Like everybody in the city honestly knew everybody in the city, and it was for me, it was like a golden era because it was just, you could go anywhere in the city and you had literally friends everywhere.
Yeah.
Whereas now the city's so big and there's so much hospitality in the city that it's really fragmented. But that connection through KBA was what kind of linked me into the nightlife portion, because I didn't know anything about the nightclub business here in Chicago. And so after about 6 months there in the bar, I got a call from an advertising agency that I had submitted writing work to. And so I submitted writing work to them. As soon as I got to Chicago, they didn't pay attention until like 6 months later. They called me and said, "Hey, we've got a job." It was at a Hispanic ad agency, and they were like, "We'd like to interview you for associate creative director." I was like, "Oh shit, maybe I could have a 9-to-5 job." And so they gave me a job. I went in and did an interview, and they gave me a job, and I was writing commercials for some of the Hispanic radio stations. Basically, I mean, it was a shit job. They took a chance on me, and it didn't work out. About 2 months later, they lost one of their biggest accounts, and so I was out of a job like that quick.
Damn.
So it was, last in, first out kind of thing. At that point, I was like, I'm going to go back to dental school. And so I was like, I just need to find a great job for the summer, like something fun I can do. So in my mind, I was like, I'm gonna go be a bike messenger. I'm gonna be a bike messenger. I'll be in the best shape of my life. I'll get to see the city. It's all good. So went downtown for an interview, had like 2 interviews, and then started fucking pouring rain. So I went home. But on the way home, I stopped at the supermarket that was by my house. I got a Chicago Reader. So the Reader was like it was a pretty prominent piece of reading material at that time.
It was the Instagram of its time.
I mean, that's where, job postings were, and you would find. And so anyways, I saw in there that there was a nightclub opening up. It was called Dragon Room. And that was, so I ended up calling them. They brought me down for an interview about 3 weeks before that, 3 weeks before they opened up to the public. And that was where I met my former business partner. And so they gave me a job there. I was basically brought in as a head barback because I spoke Spanish. So they were like, literally the second I walk in, they're like, "Yo, you speak English?" I was like, yeah, I speak English. They're like, "You speak Spanish?" I was like, "I speak both." And they were like, "Okay, well, we're having a hard time communicating, And so I came in as the head barback, and it was, again, another humbling experience. It was like, I didn't go to 4 years of college to like be doing this, but I needed to pay the rent, and I wasn't, there really wasn't anything beneath me. It was just a little bit of a mental struggle doing it. And so 3 weeks leading up to the opening, I was there helping with all sorts of organizational stuff. Opening night, it's probably one of the biggest openings comparatively, because you had Michael Jordan was there, the Smashing Pumpkins were there.
Where was Dragon Room at? Sorry for interrupting.
Yeah, no, it was, the building is still there. It's become Frosty's. So it's on Evergreen.
Pop-up?
Yeah, it's on Evergreen in Halstead.
Okay.
And mind you, at that time, Evergreen and Halstead, like Cabrini Green, was alive and well. So getting to and from work was like a fucking journey in and of itself. I mean, it was like literally leaving there at 4:30, 5 in the morning. I mean, it was like looking over your shoulder, looking around the corner. I mean, it was a dangerous area.
People would like shoot guns out of the windows of Cabrini Green at like pedestrians on the sidewalk.
All the time.
Yeah.
All the time.
That's
the building
insane.
the building we were in got shot up, multiple times. I mean, it just got to a point where we were just desensitized to it. But it was like,
it's kind of crazy that you say that, because I feel like it's sort of going back in that direction right now, where there's so many shootings. Obviously, it's not that crazy, but it's happening so often that it's like, oh, it's just another one, I
mean, I think, listen, that's a whole nother topic. It's like, for me, what's going on now is just a lot more indiscriminate, where it's just like it can happen anywhere, anytime. Then in that time, it was like if you were in the wrong neighborhood, you got shot. Well, that'll learn you.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing in that neighborhood at that hour? Like that kind of thing. Now it's like, you know, you could be in the Gold Coast and get shot in the ass. Like, it's like, it can happen anywhere. But I do think the city's getting better, though. I think it's getting better overall. But
I like to hear that.
So I was there, and in that first opening night, I mean, literally the list of celebrities was insane. That night, towards the end of the night, I'm like, in my mind, I'm going through my mind, I'm like, what am I doing here, man? I'm like, I'm carrying around fucking bags of garbage. I'm cleaning up throw up. The kind of a pinnacle was I'm on the loading dock throwing out trash, and Tiger Woods and his bodyguard and somebody else comes out, and it's just me and them literally sitting in this loading dock, and they look over, but I was like far enough, like they didn't really, like I was like invisible to them. They didn't give a shit, and they're talking about, like, you know, they're gonna go meet up with some girls or whatever, and I'm just like, in the back of my mind, I'm like, man, I'm over here by the fucking dumpster. This guy is over here. Like, it just was a very surreal moment. And so literally the next day I called, the people that had given me the job, and I was like, yo, I don't think this ain't going to work out. Like, I wasn't meant to do this, I guess. And they were like, hey man, can you just please stick around for another week? We'll give you a couple extra bucks. So I think they were paying me like $12 an hour, maybe less. It was maybe like $10 an hour plus tips,
which is decent for what, like 2000.
Yeah.
What was it?
It was not bad. It was not bad. And so I stuck around, and then about a month after that, they fired the general manager because he was guy was doing more drugs than anything you've ever seen.
Classic.
Okay,
he's probably still around.
He is. He is actually. He lives in Malta. literally. He like runs a club in like Malta, like in the Mediterranean or something. But
nice.
He went through a rough patch. But anyways, you know, what was remarkable is that this entire time we're him and I were working together, he was actually training me. He was actually a tremendous like coach, if that's believable. Like, he was really allowing me to, probably because he was so fucked up and didn't want to do anything, but he was really holding my hand and showing me and really allowing me to do a lot. And so I think that the bosses and the ownership saw that and saw that I was essentially running the nightclub.
Yeah.
And this is a month and a half, 2 months into me arriving. So they ended up firing him and made me the GM. So from head bar back to GM.
You skipped a couple steps.
I skipped a couple steps. I had no fucking clue what I was doing, but somebody saw something that they were interested in exploiting, and so I got the job, and about 2 years after that, they made me a partner.
So wait, you become GM and you're running. It's got to be the hottest club in the city, right?
It was until we. This is the same group that opened. The name of the group was Bortz Entertainment Group at that time. So no longer in existence. But they were also opening up Circus Nightclub. So Circus Nightclub opened up. Dragon Room opened up May of '98. Circus opened up mid-December of '98 as well. And so when that opened up, it took a lot of the attention from Dragon Room. Although Dragon Room was a 4 a.m. nightclub, Circus was only 2. Circus became kind of the higher profile, mainstream mega club, if you will. And so Dragon Room, in order for it to really survive, became one-off kind of mainstream party stuff. We had an Asian night, we had an African American night, we had a Latino night. And so it became, that's also where I would say I cut my teeth doing those parties more than anything. We had the biggest hip hop night in the city, and I think probably still to this day was probably the biggest. And it was like a 500 or 600 cap in the building, and then we had about 36 security guards that we had employed. I mean, it was that was the most celebrities I ever met was on that night. All West Side, South Side. I mean, it was for a kid who was 22, 23 at the time when that thing started, it was wild.
Yeah.
I was wild. I remember one night I smoked a joint with Guru.
Oh, all right.
And it was that was where I was like, okay, I like this thing.
That's
I like
sick.
this chop now.
That is a sick experience to have.
It was amazing. But I learned a lot about management. I learned a lot about security. I learned a lot about just dealing with people from different walks of life. And so I learned a lot from that experience. But about 3 years, but 2 years into it, made me a partner. Total like 4 years in, the guys that I was closer to, Brad Young and Billy Deck, they left to go start a company called Rocket Ranch.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, their first job or opportunity was to go become partners of Le Passage Nightclub.
Real quick before we start the Rocket Ranch journey, I have a couple more questions about
please,
Dragon
please,
Room.
yeah.
Who were the big DJs in the city at that time?
So Twilight Tone was
sick.
So I was working with him, Timbuktu.
Yes, R.I.P.
You know, R.I.P. And there was Mustafa Rocks was spending a lot of time there. But Twilight Tone was the main headliner. And so his protege was Timbuktu.
Yeah.
So I met Tim when Tim was probably 15.
That's crazy.
He was 15, and I guess I was letting him in the club to carry crates, and he would stick around, and I would check on him, make sure he wasn't drinking or whatever. But
play some records when Twilight Tone had to pee or whatnot.
I mean, essentially. And so I don't know if you ever had the opportunity to listen to Twilight Tone, but he was before DJ AM kind of came to the scene. Twilight Tone was probably the best DJ, one of the best DJs I've ever heard in my life, but one of the ones that at that time, he was an artist of like, his style was just, he was doing mashups before mashups were mashups, and like just the style of like slam DJ that he was just like true New York style. It was like, it was unbelievable.
That's
and so,
sick.
And the guys that were throwing the party, was a guy by the name of John Monopoly, who eventually went on to develop Kanye West. So he was Kanye West's first manager. So Kanye West used to be running around Dragon Room, but it was when he was with a group called the Go-Getters.
The Go-Getters, yeah.
And so, me, not really remembering, I'd met Kanye a bunch of times, and these guys were like, "Yo, you've given him drink tickets," like, and I was like, I don't really remember, guys, until it was years later where I was like maybe starting to connect the dots. So it's John Monopoly, Don Crawley, who became Kanye's like road manager, and then left and started up a brand called Just Don, and then Happy.
Yeah,
so everybody knows Happy.
Yeah.
So those three guys were the promoters for the Sunday night. So that's how I met those guys. So I've known Happy, for example, since I was 22.
That's crazy.
And,
I didn't know you were so tied into that whole scene. Like I remember seeing pictures of like Tim and Mano at Underground and stuff. I think they did like some one-off parties.
I would say before I got to Le Passage was a little bit like eye-opening because I was so connected to the black community in the city of Chicago. It was like a lot of the parties that I would go to would be parties from, promoters that were throwing it in at this time was in Wicker Park and stuff like that. But I was, because that's where I spent the first 4 years of my like hospitality career, was really doing parties in the ethnic communities. So it was like, the biggest like Frank Monroy and like the, V5s and like some of the biggest Asian promoters at the time. Like I learned that first. And then it was later when I came to Le Passage that I really started to understand where the mainstream, the white market.
Yeah. So in 98 to 2000.
Yeah.
Is bottle service a thing? It's not even a thing yet, right?
It was probably in 2002, a place called Glow. started doing it, and that was it was right there on Clybourne. It's now the Hustler Shop. It's right across the street from Crate and Barrel.
Okay, like Clybourne and like
Clybourne and North Avenue.
North, okay, yeah.
North Avenue. And so they started doing, that was owned by Kenny and Cal, who owned Crowbar.
Okay.
And it was a 4 a.m. spot. It was cool, super cool. And they were doing it, and they were doing it illegally. And, you know, it was starting to trickle in because, you know, if you were in Mexico or traveling abroad at any point around that time, they were already doing it. It was like, you know, it was certainly, it was like a thing that was, you know, from my vantage point, that was created somewhere in Latin America or in Europe, and it just, you know, filtered into Miami and New York, and then eventually came to Chicago. But 2006 is when bottle service was legal.
So before that, what you couldn't, you had to, it had to be in a cup or something?
Yeah, no, you just had to cocktail.
Okay.
You just had to cocktail. That's why the bars, that's why nightclubs that's the elimination of the dance floor was because of bottle service.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
You know, and so bottle service, prior to that, nightclubs were built with a shitload of bar space. Tons of bars, because that was the way that revenue was occurred. And then they had, like, you know, VIP areas, and all that was serviced by cocktailers. And then bottle service hit, and, you know, 2006 is when Underground opened up. So Underground opened up December 2006. We started with bottle service, and then quickly the city was like, shut it down, because it still had not been approved, I think, on the state level. And then it was end of January 2007 that it finally got approved.
So did someone have to like lead the charge in getting this approved?
Yeah.
Were
yeah,
you
it was.
part of
that? We weren't part of it. You know, I would say for the vast majority of our career, like if we could help, we were pretty silently involved in a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
I even want to say it might have been like Sam Sanchez and like Roman Sanchez that were kind of pushing it.
Mm-hmm.
Those guys were always involved heavily.
Yeah, Sam's
it was good. Like, I mean, these guys, you know, they paved the way for everybody else. I mean, it was something that I think was brought to the city level probably about a year prior, and then finally got flushed out. That's right around the same time that they stopped smoking indoors. Which, thank God, I'm like, oh Jesus, we'd all be dead.
We'd be dead. I would love to suck on a hookah here and there, you know, while I'm DJing, but
yeah,
I'll take the no smoking cigarettes.
My God, the cigarette thing was crazy. It was crazy. But yeah, so that's, you know, that's the that's those first 4 years, 5 years, really fell in love with the business. And I think it was because, you know, for me, it was a right brain, left brain thing. Like, I was able to manage people and, you know, provide some coaching, leadership, mentorship. Wasn't a lot of coaching and mentorship at that time, because I was just a young kid, you know, but, and then being able to create, like, I loved, and because of Dragon Room, because of the situation that we were in, the company had this new mega hot nightclub, which was Circus.
Where was Circus at?
It was, you know where Joe's on Weed?
Yeah.
It was right in front of that.
Right by Prism there, the Whole Foods. What was that, right, Kingsbury?
Prism was Crowbar.
Yeah.
Prism was Crowbar, and then Zentra was right there. Zentra's now a weed spot.
Dispensary?
Yeah, dispensary.
Yeah.
And right next to the dispensary was Circus. And Circus was huge. It was, you know, 20,000 square feet, mega club with, you know, circus performances every night. It was like a, you know, it was a spectacle. Pretty big deal. But they kind of left me on like an island with Dragon Room. And you know, if I wanted to try to capitalize on that, you know, small little ownership piece that I had, it was like, place had to be full, and, you know, we had to be busy. And so, you know, we did Greek nights, and like, I mean, the Busboy family, I don't know if you know George Busboy, but
yeah, I definitely know the name. I
mean, you know, it was, you know, I met the Busboy family back in 99, 2000, because we were doing Greek parties. And so, yeah, it was, whatever we could do. I was designing my own flyers, working with designers, managing the entire music program. It was a lot, but I loved it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You fell in love with it. One thing I just wanted to note quick is it's kind of crazy that you were working as a head bar back.
Yeah.
And like the first night, Michael Jordan, Tiger Woods, all these people are in there, and you're like, what the fuck am I doing here? I feel like it'd be the opposite. Like for me, I'd be like, holy shit, I'm around all these people. You were like, nah, I need to be that guy, not this guy.
I mean, it wasn't necessarily like that. It was just that, when you come out of the University of Michigan, 4 years, it's an ultra competitive environment, and you graduate from there. Most people do, thinking that you gotta, you were built to go do something bigger and better, right? And it wasn't like, both my parents were like, so this is what you're doing, and we just spent a fortune like putting you through college. It was like, yeah, I feel the same way. This isn't great, but I needed to eat.
Yeah.
And so you needed to be able to pay rent, and so sometimes you got to do whatever the fuck you got to do. You know?
And it was obviously your path, right? Because you I feel like that all came into play because you skipped all those levels. You went from head bar back to GM. You skipped bartender, bar manager, GL, like.
I think, I mean, if there's even, and listen, there's people that I've hired in the past or whatever, and you see that they come in and they give the job, whatever the job is, they bring a certain level of intensity to the job and a certain level of seriousness where you don't really need to say, and this is like a godsend in hospitality. If you have an hourly employee that like just does their fucking job, like that's, wow, today's a great day. Like, and that's crazy. But so I think they saw that I was really serious about my job. I was, incredibly personable and dealing with staff and guests. And, I didn't know at the time that's like those are assets that are like hard to find altogether. And so, they put a lot of stuff in front of me, I think in the first month and a half, 2 months, to see how I'd react and how I'd handle stuff. And apparently it was, to their liking, and they gave me that shot. But yeah, I mean, had that not occurred, had they not given me the opportunity, or had I not, on the flip side of that, had I not shown up to work with that type of intensity and just, with my head screwed on straight, it might've been a different story. But, now that I'm significantly older and I look back, it's like, I always had this entrepreneurial, DNA in me. And so if it wasn't that, it would have been something else. But, I'm incredibly social. And so, that the hospitality is designed for the most social, like, that's the stage that we all love to be, perform on. And so I would have probably found it regardless.
Mm-hmm.
But it certainly was an interesting path. And, I'm glad that I came in through the nightlife side rather than the restaurant side because again, I think there was things, it's easier for nightlife guys to become restaurant guys. It's not easy for restaurant guys to become nightlife guys.
Yeah. Why is that, you think?
I think if you're really good at nightlife, you really understand the fundamentals of service and hospitality and really taking care of people and making people feel great, because the true nightlife operators were masters at that, and there's a tremendous amount of creativity required in nightlife. Like in nightlife, in order for you to have a really profitable and in-demand spot, you have to be activating your space literally every week. I mean, it's like, there's got to be stuff going on in the space.
Coming up with themes, throwing parties,
everything, dude,
all that.
Everything, all the above. And that is that's daunting. It's really difficult to do that. Whereas in restaurants, it's like you got to be, your food and your product has to come out. That's insanely difficult as well. But you got to, if you can be consistent with your food and service and never change a fucking thing for 30 years and be great.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Consistency is huge. You go to a restaurant, you want it to be just as good and the exact same that it was the last time you went.
Or you're like, what the fuck's going on?
But you go to a nightclub, sometimes you want to walk in and be like, damn, look what they did in here.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you want certain things to never change, right? You want like the people at the door to like, you know, you want them to be consistent. There's just consistencies that we all want to expect. And, it's crazy, man. I have a lot of conversations with people currently about, the pandemic did something, to our business, like that it pulled a lot of the equity and the IP of like older, coaches, people that were like champions of like the guard and like really making sure that nightlife and hospitality was being done the right way. A lot of those guys got shook out. And just said, I'm going to go do something else. I'm going to go into construction. I'm going to go work for Amazon, whatever it was. Because I don't see things the way that I saw them before. I think that there's very few people that are operating at that level. I think everything became dollars and cents.
Yeah.
And so, after the pandemic, everything became a fuck you, pay me thing. And the idea of shaking hands and kissing babies and really being over the top hospitable just kind of evaporated.
Yeah.
And it was like, you know, there's just fees on everything. It's like 3% here, 10% here. It's like everybody's out to get theirs. And I get it. It's like margins are always razor thin, but if hospitality is really what you're trying to sell, and you can do it well, then that becomes a commodity that's really tough to compete against, you know?
The Party with Strategy podcast has a brand new sponsor. Make sure you guys go check out Rendezvous Limousine Services for any of your travel needs around the Midwest. It's the best you can get, top notch. Let's be honest, everyone's a little sick of buying Ubers, getting charged for Uber X's like they're black cars, and you know the market's just not what it used to be. You might as well go with your best bet, Rendezvous Limo Service. They got party buses, they got Sprinter vans, they got Escalades, they got Navigators. Only the best of the best. Make sure you check out Rendezvous Limousine. You can find them on Instagram at RNDZ Limo or their website, Rendezvous Limousine. If you're grammatically challenged like myself, Rendezvous is RENDEZVOUS. And we might as well do limousine as well. LIMOUSINE. Rendezvous Limousine, best you can get anywhere you want to go in the Midwest. Airport pickups, drop-offs, party buses, just going to see a friend. Do it in style. You know what I'm saying? Let's get back to the episode. Thank you guys for watching. All right, sorry to interrupt.
No, all
We're
good.
back at COVID, kind of changing the landscape of things. Everyone's money hungry. I think it's like, you know, you see the money disappear one day. All of a sudden you wake up and you're not allowed to collect a check from your businesses that you've created for the last 10 years plus. And you're like, holy shit, this could all get taken at any moment. And you go into like this weird mode.
Right. No, totally. It's you know, and it certainly could happen again, right? I mean, I think it's, I think, you know, depending on what comes our way, you know, we may approach it differently because I think there's a lot that we learn from it. But again, it's all relative to however deadly this thing is, if it ever does come back. But, you know, I think it just changed a lot fundamentally. And I think, you know, when I came back into the business, like through Celeste, it was important to try to reestablish and like reinvigorate some of those fundamentals. And that's all they are. They're just fundamentals. It's like, you know, managers not touching tables or not talking. I was like, you know, we're here to like give guests great experience, right? Yeah, but I'm like, well, if you don't know how to talk to people, then maybe this isn't the right place for you.
Yeah.
But, you know, and everybody in the organization that's still there. And I say still there because it was, when I came in, it was like, let's shake this thing up. Everybody believes, they understand. And there's been a real, I think, emphasis to really try to get back to a place that, that business really, that location really had never been. I mean, it's been there for 10 years. Fantastic. Just, they got to get back into the basics. So,
yeah. I want to come back to you going to Celeste because
sure.
you left nightlife entirely, right?
Totally,
and then came back.
Yeah.
So I definitely want to ask you about that, but just for the sake of the timeline, we'll go from Dragon Room. You are becoming part of Rocket Ranch.
Yes.
Did they went to go? Billy and Brad went to go start that, and did you have to be like, "Hey, what can I do to be a part of this?" Or did they kind of take you like, "Hey, we need this guy"?
Yeah. So as soon as they left, that was exactly what happened. And then the guy that I was leaving was threatening to sue for non-compete. Okay. And then they in the organization that I was joining, so I ended up joining Le Passage, which was at that time was primarily owned by Joe King, who owns Le Colonial, and Rick Wallstadt. Rick Wallstadt is also another principal that owns Le Colonial, and they were out of Rick Wallstadt was out of New York. Joe was a New Yorker that had moved here to open up Le Colonial, and then they opened up Le Passage, but they had a substantial amount of money behind them, and they were just like, fuck it, he can sue you, so we got you. I was like, okay,
that's tight. I
was like, let's see what happens. and nothing ever came of it, and that was a whole nother, I mean, that era was insane. I mean, because it was Rush Street. It's probably the best that I've ever seen Rush Street, to be honest, and people now don't really understand what Rush Street was, because it's, people talk about the West Loop, and then Rush Street essentially got killed by River North.
Mm-hmm.
And, River North essentially got killed by, by the West Loop, and who's going to kill the West Loop? But, but Rush Street was epic, man. It was epic. It was the epitome of, glitz and glam, like, even reminiscent to like some of the stuff that you kind of piece together from like the Playboy era and stuff. It was just, all the money was there, and you had a mix of new, young, and then, old school wealth that was just running around that street. And Le Passage, so Rocket Ranch got hired to essentially do a 180 with the club. So they had opened up in a year, they were in existence for about a year and a half, and the sales were going down fast. The problem was that they set out to be like a house club, and it's house is you got to find some way to bring in some type of mainstream elements into the mix. Because mainstream is what sells. It's the mass, right? And so we came in, changed the entire music format. That's when we started bringing in like White Shadow and Timbuktu, and we brought in guys that were at their peak in mainstream, basically in open format. Open format mashup was a thing that people were super high on at that time, and we marketed differently. We were extremely aggressive about marketing, and a lot of it was grassroots, in your face. And Le Passage blew up. It blew up. And we had some tremendous success there for about 3 or 4 years. We kind of rolled that into the opening of Rocket Bar and Grill. So Rocket Bar and Grill opened up in 2004. And then...
That was on Hubbard, right?
That was on Hubbard. And then, so we came over to Le Passage 2001. By 2006, we were getting ready to sell Le Passage. And so at that time, we actually had a small overlap between the time that Underground opened up and before we sold Le Passage. And Le Passage we ended up selling to a company called Three Headed Productions. And they ended up opening the drawing room there, and never really saw the success that we did. It was tough they didn't change the name. They kept the name Le Passage, and they did a couple things there that, those were restaurant guys trying to be nightclub guys. And it didn't work out, unfortunately, for them. But we transitioned out of Le Passage right around that time, 2006, and then that became the era of underground, and then opened Sunda in 2009, and a bunch of other projects came and went. We made some critical mistakes along the way, opened some places we probably shouldn't have opened up. But we had some legendary, successes when underground reopened, after the renovation. I mean, that was probably one of the bigger nightclub openings, success stories that certainly that I've been a part of. It. We took it from a $4.5 million revenue spot to close to $11 million that we were doing out of there. And it was, you were there. The place was a fucking rocket ship. It was nuts. So, and those were the best times that I had at Rocket Ranch. It was probably, towards the end of 2017, I started to think about leaving. And so it was 2017 when I eventually left, to go, jump into aviation.
Aviation from nightclubs to aviation. That's crazy.
Yeah, pretty crazy. I spend a lot of my time still. Probably about 60% of my week is in aviation.
It's more than that, though, right? Isn't the whole thing is the jets are tied into the ticket company, right? So it's like a full experience of like being able to go to a game, day of, go to the game, fly back home.
So we have two aviation brokerages. One is the first one that we started, which is Big Game Air. That is luxury game day travel. So you want to go to Super Bowl, the Derby, the Masters, college football, wherever you want to go. We handle all the on-the-ground experience, ground transport, tickets, and then obviously the aircraft. So, from groups 4 people to 250 people.
It's crazy.
So, but when we started Big Game Air, and when we started it, I had left hospitality altogether. It's probably one of the more spiritual moments I've ever had. It was like, it's crazy because you spend your entire life literally hoping for your phone to like ring, because it just meant like you were in the mix, and like there was people that needed you or wanted you in some way, shape, or form. And like 6 months after I left, that's when the phone just kind of slowly, it was like a slowing, like dying heartbeat. And it was like, I'd wake up in the morning, it was like no 3 a.m. text, like people were like, yo, I'm at the door, like help me. And I loved it. I was like, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with this. And so we launched Big Game Air in August 2017. And about 6 months after that, I kind of started feeling that we might have a challenge with our customer base, knowing that we just chartered aircraft. Like if somebody wanted to go to Miami for the weekend, but not for a game, a lot of people were overlooking us because the name was so niche. It was like, I had people coming up to me going, oh, I didn't know you guys, I could get a plane from you to do non-event stuff. And so we started a company called Triumph Jets. And so Triumph Jets came, and the reason it's Triumph because, from what are some synonyms for like big games, and Triumph came from that essentially. That business has grown massively. Big Game Air is, still, it's very niche. It's the amount of people that are trying to go to these events that are scattered throughout the year is way greater, or is way less than the available market for people that need to go travel for business or leisure. I mean, it's not even close.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't grasp that initially. That was one of the details we missed. Doesn't really matter because we ended up finding our way to where we needed to be. But so right now, out of the 60% a week that I spend in aviation, 95% of it is Triumph jets. So we're working on, right now we have some big artists that we manage, some of their flights. Most of our clients though are just insanely high net worth individuals that want to, that travel whenever, however, they just do it,
Yeah.
And it's crazy because you begin to understand that the mass gap in spectrum in wealth. And these are people that are, making minimum $5-10 million a year, minimum. And so, and these are, a lot of them are, we call them our blue collar billionaires. They're like dudes that like, maybe it's, they've established their wealth in their lifetime. Very few of them are generational wealth guys. They're just guys that hit it out of the park. So, yeah, I mean, it's fascinating business. I mean, people have asked, they're like, what do you, what does aviation have to do with, I was like, zero. And when I left, people were like, are you out of your fucking mind? Like, are you really going to give all this up to do, they're like, what do you know about planes? I was like, I don't know. I just know they fly, motherfucker. Like, yeah. That's what I know. And I was like, I'll figure the rest out. And so,
yeah, how did that thought even come to you where you were like, you know what, this is what's missing. I wish I could go to the Super Bowl and get back home in the same day.
Yeah. It was because my wife was pregnant at the time. And I wanted to go to a college football game. And she was like, yeah, there's no way you and your knucklehead friends are like going to Iowa City for the weekend. She's like, the baby will be about 3 weeks old at that time. I was like, well, what if I can get there and come back in the same night? She's like, how are you going to do that? I was like, let me get back to you on that. So my business partner now, who he was actually the first manager I ever trained at Dragon Room. Him and I are business partners now in the aviation.
That's so tight. That's always how hospitality industry works out, right? You meet someone like that and it evolves.
It's what life is like, I think. But so he's my business partner. He now lives in Miami. He used to live here in Chicago, but he's in Miami now. But he had a contact that knew somebody that owned a plane, and I was like, yo, just can you call them and give me a price on a 12-passenger jet from Chicago to Iowa City? And he came back. He was like, yeah, it's like 11 or 12 grand. I was like, here's my credit card. And we took it down, started selling individual seats on the plane. So I called the University of Michigan ticket office, said, hey, I need 12 tickets to this game. They gave them to me. And then I started texting people that I knew that were Michigan or Iowa fans. So we sold that plane out in a day. We got another plane the next day. We sold that plane out probably like over a span of like 2 or 3 days. And him and I are like, what the fuck? We just wanted to go to the game, like all expense paid. Like we were like, we're going to get everybody else to go. They're going to pay out. They're going to pay for us to go. So then we did a couple more. We did like 4 or 5 more games throughout the fall. And then at the end of that year, there was a guy that had been a mentor to me. He'd been one of the original guys who invested in Tesla. He was like Elon Musk's like great friend and one of the original investors in Tesla. Lived here in Chicago for many years. I took the idea to him. He gave me the money to go do it. And at that point in time, I was like, that's when I made a decision to leave Rocket Ranch. But a year prior to that, the problem was like, when you do something for 19 years, you either are doing it with people that philosophically, believe in the same things and you guys are completely aligned. But like any relationship, you sometimes it gets strained. And I was also at a point where I was like, man, I just felt like a one-trick pony. I was like, is this the only thing I'm going to do in my life? It's just going to be, I'm going to fucking be slinging bottles and like dealing with people at the door and like selling sushi. Like that's it. Like that's all. And it started to eat at me big time. And it was crazy because it was a point in my life where I was like, it was the most money I was making. And things were like on cruise control. Like I didn't need to rock that boat, but it was just felt compelled to fucking blow it all up. I was like, let's just see how we can blow this shit up. And jumped into aviation. But, aviation, with the exception of actually having to know, the nuance of, a lot of nuance, like, aircraft performance and like, the 30 different aircraft that you're chartering or that are available to charter for different missions, different reasons. It's all hospitality. I mean, once somebody books, then the point of, the way that their trip is managed from that point on is it's all relationship and it's all hospitality. And so that was the easiest part for us. And that was the part that we actually really excelled at. And there's a lot of people that have asked us a question of like how we were able to get our aviation company so big. And it's like we've grown it, through relationships and, again, throughout our entire journey, we've been doing it for 8 years now. That has been the easiest part of what we do. And like a lot of the guys that we compete against or are like our colleagues or our contemporaries nationally and internationally, they didn't come up through the nightclub business or in hospitality. Mm-hmm. And so for them, they're missing a link in the DNA in terms of the way that people are treated. And it's like, they treat everything very transactionally when it's like, yo, you didn't need to write that email like that. Or like this is, we try to be, anytime we have a client, whenever possible, we're there to send them off. Like we're there in person to send them off or to receive them. When we have stuff in Europe, we have a team in Europe that we use they have their own business, but we've gained trust with them that we'll pay them. We send them Triumph jet skier. They'll show up, meet our clients. They're not necessarily in the same business. They're in the like ground transportation business. So we're not, there's no real fear that there's, any issues with them, poaching clients or whatever. But we just, we're always, the emphasis of trying to make sure that hospitality is ever present is an X factor for us in that business, in any business. Yeah. Service is like, any business you can imagine, if service is not present, then it's not going to last long.
Yeah, it's so true. There's nothing that makes you want to like spread the word about a business more than having a good experience. You're like, holy shit, this is awesome. Like, I need to tell my boy to do this because I had such a good time and I know he's going to have a good time.
That's if you're able to execute. Yeah. If you're able to deliver on that promise, then sky's the limit. I mean, word of mouth is the most powerful form of marketing. Mm-hmm. Somebody tells you, yo, you got to go eat here, or you got to use these guys or whatever. Mm-hmm. You're not going to look that much further. You're just going to go do it.
Yep.
And so, so that's been, we've single-handedly, most of our, I would say higher than 95% of our business is organic. It's person talking to person, telling them that they should come work with us.
Mm-hmm. That's crazy. Yeah. That's awesome. Congratulations. That sounds incredible. Obviously, you're doing well. I tried to film this pod on a Triumph jet, but, we didn't have the budget. Yeah. So if you guys could go to the Patreon maybe and subscribe next time we do this, maybe we could be able to pull it off. But
we'll do something. Now you just put that in my mind. Like, we'll do something where we because we get opportunities all the time to jump on empty legs that we own. We're on planes as much as we humanly possibly can be. Yeah. A lot of it is to understand and know our product, to be honest. But like we have a flight next week. I can't go. I got a lot of stuff going on. But we have a 16 passenger 2-year-old Gulfstream, which is a $70 million plane that's flying to Tahiti, but it's flying from Chicago to Sioux Falls, South Dakota, to pick up the client. and my business partner and I are supposed to be on that plane,
Yeah.
going to Sioux Falls to shake their hands. I can't be there, but my business partner will be there. So, but we'll find another opportunity to do something for sure. Trust me, we'll do it.
Yeah. And how's what's up with all this Boeing talk? Is that helping you guys out or what?
I would say, I think, listen, the reality is that people that can, so like I said, when the pandemic happened, there were a lot of people that are quietly wealthy, a lot, that will not spend money on private aviation if they don't have to, but they can. Like they have all the means to be able to do it. I know a lot of people like that. And you'd never know that these motherfuckers are sitting on millions and millions and millions of dollars. But there's a good amount of people out there that still fly commercial, still take cabs, still do X, Y, and Z, but they have an extraordinary amount of wealth. And maybe a lot of that wealth is because of that philosophy, right? But
it's not what you make, it's what you spend.
Right. When the pandemic happened, they all came in off the sidelines. Everybody's like, yo, I'm not going to be trapped here. I'm not going to fly on commercial. So so everybody was flying. It was the most amount of flying from May of 2020 till end of 2021 is the most amount of private jet flying on record. And so what was crazy is that we were at the right place at the right time for aviation. I was at the wrong place at the wrong time in hospitality. So my hospitality, because I did come back into hospitality with the cafes, so I had the 2 cafes. But hospitality got absolutely fucking decimated, and private aviation was really on the total opposite side of the spectrum. That business never saw growth ever like that. I mean, it just went through the roof. And so on one end, it was a lot of tears, and on the other side, it was tears of joy. It was it was pretty crazy. But So what was the question again?
I mean, I was just kind of being stupid. I was asking about the whole Boeing conspiracy.
Yeah.
Shit.
I mean, it's not a conspiracy. It's like it's real shit that they have had some issues in vigilance in their production, and so are planes falling out of the sky? No,
thankfully.
But no, yeah, thankfully. But I think what it's doing to the consumers people are looking at what planes they're flying on, because you can check, obviously, when you book.
Yeah.
And, I tend to book more Airbus than Boeing.
Yeah.
But listen, dude, what the other thing that people don't understand about, and I'll just quickly about aircraft safety, it is the safest thing on the planet. It's you have more chance of going to an emergency room and dying in the fucking emergency room than on a plane. Planes don't, turbulence doesn't bring planes out of the sky. Zero. The only thing that brings planes out of the sky is catastrophes.
Yeah.
Right? Which are very, very, very rare. It's incredibly rare for any of that to happen. So any of you guys out there that are afraid to fly, don't be afraid to fly, because it is the safest method of transportation on the planet.
And when you do fly Triumph.
Yes, when you do fly Triumph. Yeah, I mean, man, listen, I wish everybody could afford the product, because it's just an extraordinary way to travel. I mean, it's like time travel, essentially. Being able to show up 15 minutes before you're supposed to leave. There's no security. I mean, the security checks they do prior, because they run your name through TSA, and so you get checked prior to. But you literally walk on the plane, and you're in the air like 5 minutes later.
That's so
and
tight.
So, door to door from Chicago to Miami, you're in South Beach in 2 hours and 30 minutes, and it's like nothing.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it really is. Whereas you end up capturing, or a big chunk of your day is destroyed by flying commercially.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it is what it is. It's still a privilege to fly commercial.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you some questions about
please.
underground real quick, and the whole heyday of that.
Yeah.
And especially like the DJ world, right?
Yeah.
So White Shadow opened up underground, right?
He did. Yeah. He was our creative director.
Yeah. And that guy's just gone on to fucking flourish.
I'm doing more with him now.
Nice.
Actually.
Tell him I want him on the pod. My boy Syph was trying to get him on with him.
He'll
I think,
he'll come on.
yeah, I would love that
for sure. He was just on with Jem and
I saw that.
yeah.
Sai,
Yeah, he'll come on.
Yeah. So when did because I entered like nightlife DJ scene, 2014, 15, and it's like Rock City, Dante, Architect, Katie Fancy Pants was huge at that time.
Yeah.
Remember her? Like when did that era of DJs sort of move in, and I'm sure you played a part in seeing them young and giving them shots and whatnot.
Yeah, it's probably 2006 or 7 is when a lot of those guys. I mean, a lot of those guys have been, Rock City had been already working in Michigan for some time, and a lot of those guys had been working for some time and creating their names. Like Jem was one of the first DJs that we actually brought into underground via Paul. So Paul brought him in.
Mm-hmm.
And there was I'll tell you, there's a lot of those guys ended up coming to Chicago. Some of them are Midwest kids. A lot of them are from Michigan, but a lot of those DJs were homegrown here in Chicago. I mean, this is a music epicenter. And unless you're from here, you don't really know that. And if you're from here, you don't really know that unless you're involved in music. But some of the most talented musicians come in, and certainly DJs and producers, and have come out of Chicago. So there was an abundance of young talent, and I used to make it. It was like it's part of my job, at least that I felt like my responsibility, to go around the city to find new emerging talent. Like I always wanted to find the next guy, not to get rid of the old guy, but to always have a stack of and to just, my thought was like, if I can keep the competitive layer really, it was that there was a lot there, texture in that we would always have the best music. And so I remember I was running around town, checking out Flostradamus at these little fucking hole in the wall parties, and Matt Rowan and I, went to go see him at Medio and E6 and these were guys. I was Mano and Hollywood, and I was all over the city, and a lot of that stuff was happening in my neighborhood in Bucktown and Wicker Park, but. And so that was really important to the success of every place that we've ever been. So, but for underground for sure, it was a lot of DJs, when we were at our peak, would die to spin there. They really wanted to be able to put that on their roster.
Hell yeah. So,
and a lot of clubs didn't really understand the value of actually locking into a resident. It was that was the first thing I did when I got to Celeste. Unfortunately, a lot of DJs lost their job when I walked in, but it was it was because there was a rotation of guys that just, some would spin there once a month. It's like, how are you going to create a sound or have somebody, understand what the equity and the what the room needs to feel like if they're only here once a month? I said you can't do that. You need to have people that you lock into, that are your residents, that build the night, that protect it, and you can grow a brand with that.
There's always two different schools of thought on that. There's guys like you, and then there's guys like there's a person that took over Bottle Blonde Houston recently who's great GM, but he has the complete opposite of I want to switch it up, we need different DJs, this and that. And I always lean towards the resident. You need someone that knows what's going on in there, who can come back on if they need to, if you have a guest DJ, whatever it is. To me there's no two schools of thought. There's one way to do it correctly, and there's another way to train wreck it. and the correct way is to lock into somebody that you believe can execute and create that can create the sound that you really want. And it's also your responsibility to push that individual. You're people get complacent, and
I had to have many conversations with DJs that we had for residencies a long time, and some people we actually, removed and switched them out, and so it's part of the nature of the business. But we were really fortunate that we had a lot of talent to choose from, and we also had a sound that we wanted to lock into that I thought was fun. The goal was like, if people weren't moving, then there's a problem here.
Mm-hmm.
We were never really a for hire place where like, yo, so-and-so spending 10 grand and wants to hear whatever. Listen, if we can make it happen, great. But if I just played that song fucking 5 minutes ago, I don't give a fuck who they are or what they're doing. I don't care, because to me that was that was not the long-term vision. The long-term vision was always like, everybody in the room has to be captivated. So, and there were a lot of big time spenders that would come through Chicago. Some of them loved us. Some of them didn't love us for that reason.
Mm-hmm.
No, when I go there, they don't play the shit that I want to hear. Well, I'm not your fucking jukebox, dude. Like, we're gonna play what all those girls over there want to hear.
Yeah.
Not what you and your boys want to hear.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's I think that's always been our philosophy in music.
And there's been a huge shift. I mean, I don't know if you noticed it, but to me it seems like 2015 underground had its own name, where it didn't matter who was playing there. That place was going to be packed no matter what.
Totally.
It's not really that anymore. There's very particular places that have that, and they do a good job with it. But for the most part, it's people really fighting to get, who can you bring in here? Who can we hire that's going to bring the people in here? It's like, it's sort of switched, Yeah,
I think a lot of that is because you have shitty operators.
Yeah.
I think it's because guys that don't know how to run their business, and they think that the DJ is going to make or break their business. Like, if that's what you are basing your business on, like whether, DJ X is going to fill the room. Yeah, somebody occasionally can. The reason we were so profitable and made so much money at Underground was because of the fact that we didn't need to bring in, we did it all with homegrown guys that we were paying $500, $600 for like their set or whatever, where other people across town were paying 15 grand for bringing in somebody. Like, didn't matter. We were playing the same tunes that they were playing over there. And, our guys, because they were residents, had become synonymous with Underground. Like, people would come to see them too, and just know that they were going to be in the room, and they could see the bartender they wanted to see, and they could see the door person they wanted to see or whatever. I think it's, I think that's how you operate your business. It dictates whether it becomes the place that people want to go with great frequency or not. And, the formula is not that difficult, but it's like, if you don't make it consistent and safe and like a place that's high level, and I say high level, it's like a lot of these places, during I'd call it between 2018, 2017 through right up till about a year ago, I throw the bottle blonde group in there, and like, these guys, listen, those guys have tremendous businesses, big numbers, but
they used to.
It was very, anybody wanted to get in was in, and it just, that momentum that went, that you saw it probably peak with like Bounce and those guys. It was just like, it was a ratchet ass fucking group of people. It was like, if I was going to go out, there's no fucking way that I would want anybody that I cared about to be in the room like that. Yeah. Because it just is like, if you're, what happened was we stopped thinking about selling luxury. We stopped thinking about selling high-end nightlife. It just became trying to sling bottles of Don Julio and that's what it was. And even music was, rap and hip hop had gotten so fucking bad. I was like, where's the beat? Like, there's nobody dancing. It's like, everybody's just like comatose. It was like, everybody was like on, fucking codeine or something. I was like, this isn't what nightlife is supposed to be about. Yeah. The sexual tension. It was just like a real negative vibe that existed in the room, and just was everything that was beautiful about nightlife had like diminished. Mm-hmm. And I think though we're in a we're in an upswing right now.
It's coming back.
I think so. I think that they're the new. Listen, I do believe generational habits and generational behavior impacted some of that. I think that we, I'm not going to blame the millennials entirely, but I think young kids today want to get dressed up. I think they want to see nice shit. I think they want to hear, house music's on an upswing again. And, you're starting to see and hear more EDM coming into nightlife. I always thought it was interesting when I came into Celeste that they had never really played hip hop for 10 years. I mean, it was always a house establishment, and we've kept it like that. It's like, it just happened to be that right now that's where the movement and momentum is going. Yeah, right. But, I mean, I love hip hop. I just think, right now musically it's in a spot right now. It doesn't connect with me if you want to do high end nightlife. Not really. Unless it's like some mashup, like over, 135 BPMs or something like that. But,
yeah.
But I do think it's changing. And I think that, people are starting to realize that that's a short-term, running a business like that, it ends up being a short-term outlook.
It feels to me like you don't know what you got till it's gone kind of situation.
Totally.
I mean, I personally have been denied at the door at Underground multiple times and just been furious, and you get that anger built up, and you're like, fuck this place. And then, a place like Bottle Blonde opens and they're like, yeah, well, come in, just come in, spend your money. And it seems like the remedy to that, and you don't really know that you're sort of fucking shit up with that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, Bottle Blonde, I think, took a lot of business from Underground when it first opened up. And, with nightlife, it's really difficult, past the 2-year, 3-year mark. I don't care who you are. It's really tough to maintain. I mean, you look at Tao now. I mean, I don't know anybody that goes there, but I'm also older, and, they're only open 2 days a week. And it's like, they have all the money in the fucking world, all of it, really. And it's like, it's hard. It's hard because, you spend $50 million on a build out. Like, what more are we going to do to the room to beautify it? But everybody's already seen it. It's already done. That's said, difficulty that I was mentioning, that you have to activate, and you have to activate in really different, interesting ways to stay relevant. It's really tough in nightlife, where in, restaurant, if you can just keep it even keeled, then you're good to go for 40 years.
Yeah.
So, but I do think that, listen, what's going to end up happening, and what's happened, is for the most part, most places have gotten shut down.
Yeah.
They've all gotten shut down. There's very few 4 a.m.s even left. And, the places that are left, I think will either you're operating, I mean, what everybody should know and should see from everything that's occurred is, if you're operating like an asshole, you're going to get shut down.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to get shut down. There's been 5 places I can name right now that have all gotten shut down for operating like assholes
because of incidences of violence.
It's like violence.
Insanity.
It's just, you know what? The cops in the city don't want to deal with your fucking problems. Like, having a license is a privilege, and you should run it like that, rather than, hey, every night somebody's getting their head cracked in on the fucking sidewalk.
Yeah.
It's like, it's just not, it's not the way that things should be. And it's, but that's nothing new. I mean, there's been places like that, even when I was starting in the business, they went out of business quickly too. And so it's just all, that's a quick way to go out if you want to go out.
Yeah. It gives me hope to hear. I mean, you've been in this game for so long, and in this city in particular, that you have a very good vision for what's happening. It gives me hope to hear you say that you think it's coming back, because we're definitely coming off of a lull from COVID, right? And I love to hear that you think we're coming back on an upswing. Do you feel like that exclusivity is coming back a little bit?
I mean, listen, I think in certain environments you can do it, right? Smaller is better for me. Everybody wants big box, and clubs kept on getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And it just depends on what you're trying to do. If you're trying to be, who's over on Kingsbury?
Prism.
Yeah. Sorry. those guys have a formula. They're a concert venue essentially. They throw big concerts, bring big DJs, and so for them, exclusivity. Obviously, they have Number 9. I think Number 9 does Danny and John they've got a good program over there.
Mm-hmm.
But there's not a lot of extreme quality in the city. I mean, there's a lot of great people, but that nightlife isn't their thing, right? It's like if you're really trying to find people that are interested in being out, past 2:00, which is also a thing. Like people are becoming very, very conscious of their intake, of drinking to begin with. And these are all factors that I think are contributing to how nightlife is shaking out. A lot of people are dosing, taking, smoking weed before they go out. They'll have 1 or 2 drinks.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is that I do think that people want to find safe space, and young guys and girls want to be able to go somewhere where they can enjoy themselves, whether it's through bottle service or cocktails. Cocktails and bar activity is having a huge resurgence too.
Yeah. Dance floors a little bit.
What's that?
Dance floors.
Dance floors. I mean, listen, Celeste has really everything in the building. And we see a great amount of activity for the limited amount of tables that we have for bottle service. We also see people that come in there that want to spend $200 at the bar. People that want to come in and spend $10 and then go dance. So for us, the idea that we have, we're lucky because we have a lot of those different environments in one building. But it's people are wanting to consume nightlife a little bit differently. I do think like the lounge, like Ultra Lounge is going to come back.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's prime because I think there's a lot of people that are in their mid 30s, late 30s, early 40s that's what they would fuck with. That they would do some. Have you ever been to Pearl Club?
Pearl, is that on Grand in...
Yeah, Milwaukee.
No, I haven't been yet.
So go there.
Okay.
Go there. I don't own any of it, but it's I endorse it.
Nice.
It's owned by Rob Katz, who's one of the Boca founders. It is I think to me it's indicative of where things can go and what nightlife can look like.
Yeah.
It's really sharp, sexy. It's adult, And again, it's my perspectives are painted by the person that I am today, and I'm not 25 looking to stay out till noon.
Yeah. Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Help us out a little bit. Algorithm activating activity. That's what we appreciate. Drop a little comment, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Thank you again. Let's get back to the show. All right. Once again, sorry for the interruption. Pearl Club. I love that you come on here and endorse a spot that is not even yours.
Yeah.
Gentleman, scholar. I love it. What, do you party at all anymore? Like, do you go out and like have a little night, or is it just kind of the dinner, maybe Pearl Club kind of thing?
That's really it.
Yeah.
When I'm at Celeste or when I'm out in work mode, I try to keep it work mode and no drinking. Honestly, when you've been doing what I've been doing for as long as I've been doing it, I find a lot of enjoyment in getting to bed early.
Yeah.
And then with the other businesses that I'm involved with, it's really tough. So it's like you got to conserve your energy. But when I'm traveling, or even here in Chicago, but anytime I do get to go to a well-built, well-operated nightclub, that's where my heart is. It's like everything just, your body feels different. It's just you're immersed. And so I believe that nightclubs and nightlife and entertainment have tremendous capacity to do good things, to really be able to take people on these journeys. I just think it's all been mishandled, a lot of it. Certainly in examples that I kind of shared earlier, but there's people that are doing some very respectful things. Yeah.
And obviously you left nightlife for a bit, started these aviation ventures, and they're going really well. What ultimately brought you back? Your love for it, or was it just the perfect opportunity at the right time?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's, you also, when you leave, you start missing stuff, right? And so in my aviation business, like we're a small unit, and so I missed coaching, mentoring, leadership. I missed that tremendously. And within hospitality, there's so many people that you can have. There's a lot of opportunity to do that. There's also the idea of like creating something, and that's another piece that my brain and my personality really requires that. But I had also been developing a relationship, been longtime friends with the Hindo brothers that own Celeste. I've known them for 15 years, and when they called and asked what I was doing, said I'm free and available to have a conversation. What do you guys want to talk about? And so that's kind of how that started. But I will say that when they called me, I was at this point where I was either going to hang the hospitality shoes up for good, and just say, aviation now is an independent business that I can completely live off of, without anything else. And I said, if you guys are willing to empower me, put some money into the tank and allow me, not for me, but allow me to go hire some really talented people, I said, we can build this. I can get this thing fired up fast. And that's what it was predicated on. It was predicated on them having a real vision for growth. Like, we want to open more places. So I'm opening a Mexican restaurant here in like a month and a half.
Oh, nice. Where at?
It's on Hubbard Street, right in front of Hampton Social.
Okay.
And so right down the block from Celeste. We've got another project that will be opening in October. It's in Westtown. And we've got some other coals in the fire, so to speak, that we're looking at for 2025. They have a really strong appetite for growth, and I'm okay with that. I'm 100% okay with it, as long as we have talented people within the system. And the way that I look at stuff now is I just want to see other young people that want to like try to be what I might have had, or what they might have thought I had at the peak or whatever. Those are the people that I want to put on. Mm-hmm. I want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to have their dream filled. And I'm 100% happy being absolutely nobody, question mark in the back behind the curtain. Like, I don't need anything. My success is like, if we're successful as an organization, the checks will come, the money will be there. But more importantly, I want to see this young talent, evolve, because there really is a lot of young kids. And again, my fear to what I was saying earlier about a lot of like the IP being shaken out. Who's coaching these kids? Who's developing these kids? A lot of people certainly can evolve and grow on their own. But if you're able to take somebody and really sculpt them and take them under your wing, you're doing a real, there's a real benefit there to everybody involved. Mm-hmm. So that right now is where that focus, that appetite to come back, was a lot of it was on growth and whether or not there was going to be real resources to actually do what I've done in the past. It's like I needed to be able to have a checkbook to be able to really fuel this thing up. And fortunately, they've been really excited about what we've been able to do. Yeah,
it's good. That's awesome.
Yeah,
it's awesome. How do I want to ask this? Or maybe just to touch on having a mentor kind of mentality like that is like, I feel like one of the best qualities in a human being that you can have, and definitely was hammered into me from Eddie Mills. Yeah. R.I.P. Yeah. He told me, architect essentially kind of took me under his wing and was giving me the opportunities that he was leaving to go move on and try and excel in the DJ world, and Eddie Mills was like, you owe that to someone else. You know, he did that for you.
Yeah.
You owe that to someone else. So that's definitely a huge thing.
Yeah. I mean, you know, Eddie, I think about Eddie often. Eddie and I met in 98. So I'd known him forever.
Yeah.
And Eddie was a crazy motherfucker, like one of the craziest. You know, frankly, it's crazy that we had him that long.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Yeah.
And I think anybody who knows Eddie just knows what I'm saying is not, you know, I love him like a brother, always will, but knows that I'm speaking the truth.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but he was one of the biggest like heart and souls like you ever meet, and he was like a brother, but he was also a project for me too. It was like I saw him, you know, go from I saw many different phases of Eddie Mills, but when underground was at its peak, he really had his head screwed on pretty damn straight. He was making good amount of money. He was in demand, and that made me super happy. Made me, you know, incredibly happy. And even when I left underground, you know, it seemed like he was still on track. Eddie was one of those guys though that needed somebody to check him, like to keep him, slap him around, and you know, I lost touch with him when I left because it was like, you know, when you make a decision to leave nightlife, you don't go hang out in it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I was like, yo, I'm in bed by 9 and up by 4:30. So, but yeah, his legacy will be that. A lot of DJs that I spoke to, you know, after his passing were, that was the experience. Like Eddie was very kind and willing to try to make sure that everybody was having success.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, there's to me, there's no room for like, you know, I love competition. I love it. Like I'll compete with whomever, like, and in my mind, I'll put a fucking target on someone's back but it's never malicious. It's always like, and it's never out of like spite or jealousy. It's just, for me, it's about strategy. It's about how the fuck do you beat them, you know, fist to fist, like in a fucking street brawl in the street. And it's like, how are you going to better them at their game? And so it's like, you got to work harder. You got to prepare more. You got to do, you know, and so there's been a lot of relationships that I've had throughout my years that have been like that, where I've been thankful that there's been that competitive spirit, whether that person knew or not.
Yeah.
That, you know, they had become an object of my, you know, thinking. I don't know, but it certainly got me motivated in a lot of ways. And this was on the restaurant side. It was also on the nightlife side. It was, you know, many things. And so I approach things differently now. It's my competition is internal. It's like I know what I'm 100% capable of doing, and it's whether or not I have the means and the ability to articulate that to the people around me is what really that's where the competitive stage is. Like in terms of going head to head with anybody, it's like I'll go head to head with anybody. It's like I don't care. It's just put my team against your team. No fucking problem. We're good. As long as I have a team, and now that team is coming, you know, it's starting to be beefed up. I mean, when I look under the hood now with what we have at Celeste and what we're growing with this new Mexican concept and the talent that we've already brought in now, it's like, damn, if we get another place under our belt, which is coming in October, that just means the company can grow. We've been pretty good at hiring right. Culture is everything for us. It's like, it's really making sure that we're finding the right people that are going to fit into the system. And it's almost like an offensive system, like a NFL team. It's like, is this person going to thrive? And this is exactly the position they need to play. And they need to be able to do X, Y, and Z to be able to fit into that system. And so, but it's we're in a good spot. But mentorship and leadership and coaching is a fundamental thing for any organization, for any business, for any industry, if you want to leave a legacy.
Mm. And just to put a little button on that, you have a podcast.
Yes.
About mentorship.
Yeah, it's called Leadership DNA. Been doing it for about 2 years. It's my podcast mate, Rob Cressy, and I do it. Comes out every Sunday, and we talk. It's all every show is about different aspects of leadership, mentorship, coaching. For me, it's a great way to, because I'm so passionate about it. Mm-hmm. It's a great way to be able to like just chop it up, and we're not trying to monetize it. We're not trying to do anything. We're just trying to just get on and jam for a few hours and talk about the stuff we're passionate about. And if anybody enjoys it, or then hopefully we're helping somebody.
Yeah, it does feel real good to. It's fucked up that you have to like have a podcast to just get with somebody and like not be on your phone and have a real conversation.
Yeah,
it's
right?
Crazy like that, but it is.
That's the world we live in.
It's an incredible thing to do. Is to just sit and talk with someone. So thank you for coming. I appreciate it.
Of course,
it's been amazing. I have one last little thing to touch on that Rock City made me promise I was going to ask you about. DJs get a little bit more leeway in the nightlife world. I feel like, they get fired and rehired pretty often. Yeah. Sometimes it's even pretty tough for a DJ to get fired. They're eccentric people, maybe kind of crazy people. Sure. And I think that operators realize that and give them a little more leeway. Also, we're 1099. We're not actual employees. I think that helps.
Yes.
And, there was a time when Rock City, I think, smashed a POS system or something.
Yeah, maybe.
Do you remember this?
I don't know. He was always doing some shit. He was always doing some shit. But you know how many DJs I've fired and then rehired? I mean, yeah, it's because for me it was like, do you understand where I'm coming from? Did you learn your lesson? Good, because what you've done is now you've required me to maybe not go in a direction that I necessarily wanted to. I'm a forgiveness guy though too, big time. I don't hold grudges. If my business is in a better place with somebody, unless somebody came in and did something really fucked up, malicious, like which you really never saw from DJs. It was always like, hey, I've had 14 shots and it's 4 a.m. and like, sorry, I pulled my dick out. Yeah. It's never really malicious. There's always forgiveness is a couple weeks and it's like, let's get back into it.
All right, good. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
For sure.
All right. Yeah. Thank you very much for joining us. I appreciate it. I would love to do it again. You're obviously a well of knowledge and Chicago nightlife history, business, mentorship, all that is all
I'm in.
Things that people need to hear about.
Yeah. No, listen, dude, I appreciate you doing one. I appreciate you having me. Two, I think the stories that are hidden beneath the history of certainly of our city nightlife is important. It really is. It's really important that people understand, excuse me, the importance that the community watering hole has had for culture, really, period. I mean, when we were building underground, it was I was studying that very thing, like what significance like Studio 54 had on New York and culture and fashion and gay rights and just a number of things that came from it. In this city, when I would say like in the early to mid 2000s, music was being created in the city, and this is the emergence of you had Kanye West and all the other people that came up behind him and Virgil and all that stuff happened in nightlife. I mean, yes, these guys were working in the behind the scenes and doing whatever they were doing, and and becoming deeper involved in the arts and fashion. But we tend to demonize sometimes the drinking and nightlife, but we tend to forget that people are really out trying to create expression, trying to connect, and so we need to find ways to be able to do it safely, do it creatively, because it's like, what's the alternative? Sit on your fucking couch and swipe left or up or whatever, whatever. I missed that whole Tinder phase. Thank God.
You're lucky.
But I think that we have a responsibility. Operators have a responsibility to continue to bring creativity into the space, to educate the people that are working with us, for us, on how we can responsibly run and operate these businesses, and just keep moving forward, because there's a lot that culture and society have gained, certainly have gained more than what we've lost. So so we got to keep moving. So I appreciate being able to speak. There's a lot of my history. It's foggy at times, but it's long. I've been doing this for a long, long time. I've seen certainly the city of Chicago transform from what felt like a small Midwest town to like a mega metropolis, and where it's bursting at the seams with hospitality and world-class restaurants and stuff like that. But nightlife in the city it's not dead. It's not in the best spot right now, because it needs to kind of get itself reworked. But I think in the next 1 to 2 years, you're going to see an emergence of a higher quality product that'll be very reminiscent to the lounges and stuff that we were digging on like in the early 2000s. I think that you're going to see that. And go to Pro Club. I think it's you'll understand what I'm talking about. They did a great job.
I'll definitely check that out. And yeah, that's amazing. It's a great way to put it. And I never really thought about it like that. And you do kind of just think of nightlife as like degeneracy and all that.
Yeah,
but
it can be.
There is beauty in it.
For sure.
So we need it. And yeah, I love that you're hopeful, because there's always hope. Like, sure, it's in a lull.
Yeah.
But it's never going to go away.
Right.
It's never going to go away. So the tide has to turn at some point.
My hope is in the youth. I see starry-eyed young kids in their early 20s coming in, and the expectations are high. Like, people are seeing everything they want to see on their phones. It's like, how do you create something that's better than that? And so you got to charging the amount that it costs to go out these days is extraordinary. It's like, it's wildly expensive to go out. And so as an operator, you better fucking put on a show. It's like, say hi, say thank you, do all the things that like hospitality requires, like, and do it well, because that's our saving grace. Like, if people don't latch onto that, then we're not going to be in a good spot. But I think we're in a really good spot.
Yeah,
we can do it.
Yeah, we definitely can. And we're going to need your help. So come out, buy some drinks, listen to some good DJs, support us. Like the YouTube video if you're watching on there. Subscribe to the channel. Algorithm activating activity. That's what we like to see here. Thank you very much, Arturo Gomez.
Yes, of course.
We'll definitely do this again.
Okay.
For sure.
I'm in.
Well, all right. Battle raps, cause I've shaken grown men to the point that they can't even face their own friends. That's why they rhyme about jewels, not life, cause the ice on which they skating is so thin. That's what I love about the human soul. It'll usually show when the truth ain't told. Use a lie.